Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're looking at something absolutely fascinating and honestly, incredibly common. We're talking about the invisible echoes of childhood and exactly how they sneak up and show up in our everyday adult lives. We're going to break down the actual science and the psychology behind why we react the way we do, even when everything around us seems perfectly fine. Okay, let's dive into this.
So, have you ever gotten a genuine compliment, and instead of just saying, thank you, your brain instantly goes on high alert? You might immediately start wondering, okay, what do they actually want from me? Or are they secretly making fun of me? Listen, if you endured a lot of chaos or stress growing up, you don't just carry memories of those events. You carry a whole set of deeply ingrained reflexes. And the tricky thing is, these psychological patterns that formed way back then don't usually announce themselves with a giant neon sign. They just kind of quietly color how you perceive the entire world around you.
Picture this. You're having a completely ordinary Tuesday. The sun's shining, work is fine, no big deal. And then, your phone buzzes. It's a text saying, "We need to talk." Boom. Instantly, your stomach drops, your jaw clenches up. Your brain literally skips right to assuming you're about to be fired, or dumped, or banished to a remote island. But why? Why does this simple, completely neutral message trigger such an intense, immediate panic? Well, it's because your body is reacting to a past threat that actually isn't happening right now. This brings us to what we like to call the ordinary Tuesday symptoms. Think about it for a second. Does a tiny typo in an email feel like a total career-ending disaster? Or maybe you sit down on the couch to finally relax, but resting actually feels oddly unsafe, like you should be doing something productive just to justify your existence. Are you constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop when things are finally blissfully calm? Or, back to those compliments, they bounce right off of you, but one mild critique will literally stick in your head for days. I know, from the outside, and honestly even to yourself, these reactions can look incredibly confusing. But let me validate this for you. They make perfect sense. They make sense when you realize your nervous system learned super early on that small signs could mean really big, painful consequences. And this brilliantly illustrates what is actually happening beneath the surface. You see, we all experience regular stress, right? The kind that challenges us, teaches us resilience, and actually helps us grow stronger in the long run. But toxic stress? That is an entirely different animal. When a child goes through bad things over and over, whether that's being chronically ignored, living in constant chaos, or just never having a safe, steady person to go to, their biological alarm system literally gets stuck in the on position. It just floods their little body with stress chemicals for way too long, without anyone there to help calm things down and hit reset.
And guys, this isn't just a metaphor about having difficult feelings. Actual researchers at Harvard have shown that toxic stress physically alters how the brain develops during its most critical growing years. We're talking about structural changes here. The physical parts of the brain that deal with processing emotions and making decisions actually grow differently. Now, obviously, a child doesn't know any of this complex biology is happening. They just know that the world feels scary and unpredictable, and they have to figure out some way to survive it.
Let's move to and see how this builds into adulthood. Because as a kid, you might develop some seriously brilliant survival tactics. Think about a child with zero power. They might learn to constantly scan every single room for danger just to avoid getting hurt. Or maybe they become the ultimate family peacemaker, expertly managing all the adults' volatile feelings just to keep the peace. Or they might just learn to completely disappear, getting so quiet that nobody notices them at all. And hey, these tricks work. They literally make a bad situation survivable. But flash forward, and that constant scanning, it turns into this unrelenting adult anxiety where you could never, ever relax. That peacemaking morphs into entirely ignoring your own needs. And the disappearing act results in an adult who feels completely disconnected from their own feelings, desires, and identity. Alongside these survival tactics comes something even heavier. It's the really stark contrast between guilt and shame. You see, when you're little and unpredictable, bad things happen, your brain just isn't developed enough to realize, hey, this isn't my fault. Kids inherently think everything revolves around them. So instead of feeling guilt, which says, I made a mistake and I can fix it, which is actually helpful and helps you learn, they internalize the trauma as shame. And shame is toxic. Shame says, I am the mistake, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. They think, well, if I were just quieter or smarter or more lovable, this wouldn't be happening. And that belief just burrows so deep into how they view their core self. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that massive number right there, 17,000. Because this is not just theory. It's backed up by one of the absolute largest public health studies ever conducted.
The Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACEs study, looked at over 17,000 participants to track exactly how early trauma and toxic stress echo into later life. That is a huge sample size.
And the data from that study? It revealed profound, undeniable patterns. People who experienced more adverse events as children were significantly more likely to struggle with major issues as adults. We are talking about much higher rates of depression, anxiety, addiction, and even chronic physical pain. It also extended to higher rates of relationship and money problems, too. It literally proves that what happens in our early years leaves a measurable, objective imprint on our physical and mental health, sometimes even 30 or 40 years later. It's wild. And this imprint strongly shapes our relationships, too. We can call this the familiarity of chaos. See, a lot of adults who had difficult childhoods unconsciously spend their lives recreating what feels normal to them, even when it's super painful. If you grew up in chaos, a stable, calm, loving relationship might actually feel terrifyingly alien to you. So you might find yourself repeatedly drawn to unpredictable partners. Why? Because chaos, even though it hurts, is familiar. Your body finds this strange, kind of twisted comfort in known patterns, because at least you know exactly what to expect. On the flip side, some people go the exact opposite route and become highly controlling. They can't handle anything spontaneous, because to their nervous system, any unpredictability still feels like a life-threatening danger. Which brings us to one of the most confusing echoes of all, emotional flashbacks. So a regular memory tells you you're thinking about the past, right? You know it's a memory. But an emotional flashback hits you with the overwhelming feelings from trauma, like sheer terror or total powerlessness, but without the context of a memory attached to it. You can't point to a clear trigger. You just suddenly feel deeply unsafe and small. And because you don't realize it's a flashback to the past, your brain starts desperately scanning your current life for an explanation. It'll sometimes even invent problems that don't exist, just to make sense of these massive, terrifying feelings. So the crucial point is this. It just means your system learned something once and hasn't updated yet. Really hear me on this. If you see yourself in these concepts, it does not mean you're broken. You're not defective. You are simply operating on outdated mental software. Think about it. Your adult life rarely gives you clear danger signals anymore, so your body just fills in the gaps, reacting to slight tone changes or silence or mild conflict as if they are ultimate threats, because, well, once upon a time, they really were. But here is the incredibly hopeful science of neuroplasticity. The research definitely does not say your fate is sealed. Far from it. Your brain literally has the biological ability to create brand new neural pathways throughout your entire life. This means change is always possible. Now, to be totally fair, it's important to note that updating the brain is incredibly hard work, and it usually requires professional help, like therapy, to guide you safely through the process. But it is scientifically absolutely possible to rewrite these reflexes. You are not trapped in the past.
So how do we actually start doing that? Well, by actively updating your nervous system. First, you have to learn to spot those old survival habits when they pop up on an ordinary Tuesday. Catch them in the act. Second, understand and truly appreciate how they helped you survive back then. Give that childhood version of you some credit. They did what they had to do. Third, in the present moment, consciously choose to respond differently. And you have to do this over and over, even when every fiber of your being screams for you to do what's familiar. And finally, believe that safety is real. You literally have to teach your body that steady, reliable care exists now, and that you deserve it simply because you exist.
That kid who went through all that chaos, they didn't fail at anything. They showed incredible strength, dealing with things no child should ever have to face, using whatever tools they had at the time. But let's be real, they are exhausted, and they deserve to finally rest. So I want to leave you with this question. Are you ready to let the adult take over? You've survived. You did it. Now the adult you've become can take over the job of staying safe and making decisions. It is definitely hard work, but stepping into that true safety might just be the most worthwhile work you ever do. So what steps will you take today to finally update your system?